Or good morning, depending on from where you're dialing in. Welcome to my short half-hour presentation on how to raise 1 billion with 9 slides. We used to call it actually how to raise 1 billion with 5 slides. So we've changed it a bit and added a few more slides to make it more interesting. I hope you like it. And so I'm Elmar. I'm the CFO of Gorillaz, and I hope to give you some overview tonight over our fundraising round and what we've learned. We've raised obviously quite a bit of money at Gorillaz in the last 18 months, and my experience in total from fundraising rounds and in particular, with Gorillaz. So maybe a bit of background about myself. So I'm here the CFO of Gorillaz. I've been with the company since about a year now, and I was actually an angel investor in Gorillaz, and then joined the company operationally a bit later. And Gorillaz is the fastest German unicorn, from founding to unicorn in 9 months, and we raised over $1 billion basically from March to October this year in 6 months time period. And from the beginning of this year until today, we scaled the team from 400 to 14,000 employees across 9 countries. In my previous life, I was for 14 years in venture capital. I was with an Australian firm called Macquarie, worked in their venture capital division, and was an early investor in a number of unicorns here in Germany and in Asia. Also have a co-investment with Speed Invest in Tier Mobility, where I was invested in angel investor. And so great always to be on the Speed Invest calls and team events. So glad to be here tonight. Okay, about funding rounds and Gorillaz and what we've done here. So here you have an overview of the 10 largest VC rounds in Germany in startup history. And you can see Gorillaz is actually number 2 after Celonis, and we are very proud of this, that we could manage even after such a short history of the company. You know, as I mentioned, the company itself is only like 18 months old, to raise such a large amount of money. And we raised from the world leading investors and funds. I mean, unfortunately, we don't have Speed Invest on the share register, but as I mentioned, I have them on a couple of other investments, personal investments that I've made, so that's great. But we've raised from Atlantic Food Labs originally, from Code2, Fifth Wall. We've got investment from Green Oaks, Dragoneer, Tencent, DST, and in the latest round we had Delivery Hero leading the round as a strategic investor. Oops. Yeah, and at Gorillaz, I mean, what do we do? Maybe give you a short overview in a video. Okay. So you've seen one thing, we definitely like loud techno music, but we're also about grocery delivery. So that's a quote from our founder, Khan, who said basically, in a world where we have the technology to go to the moon, grocery shopping has to be radically faster and more convenient. So we are all about a value proposition where we deliver groceries in minutes to the house of the consumer, and where we're trying to reshape retail experience, which has been developed around the logistical supply chain of the traditional retailers, and which is inconvenient for the consumer and not in line with the consumer need. And to give you a bit of an overview of what we do or how the model works, and we offer in an app around 1,500 products, which are grouped by product categories, and where the consumer can choose the products, and then it's led to a direct checkout where they can pay through Apple Pay, PayPal, credit cards, and so forth. And then the order gets transmitted to a warehouse. So we operate micro fulfillment centers in central locations, where we place all the different products, and these are operated then by pickers. And the picker puts all the items into a Gorillaz bag, and this usually happens under 90 seconds. Puts them on a tray, where they get picked up by a rider, who delivers then the shopping bag within 10 minutes to the house of the consumer. And this is done in a 2-kilometer radius from the warehouse and on e-bikes. And the consumer can track then the order in real time and receives basically the delivery within 10 minutes. So that's a model. I mean, it's a fairly simple model, but which is very sticky with the consumer. Why is this the case? Because you can see here the groceries evolution. So in the first wave you had superstores, where it's self-service and the consumer drives to a parking lot, which is a bit out of town maybe, and they have a super large assortment available, and the price is the most important factor for the consumer to choose a good. Then we had the second wave, e-commerce, where you have delivery in 2 or 3 days. The delivery comes to the consumer by a van, and the van goes to different locations then on one route, and you have the main products available. You have regional warehouses, and for the consumer, the timing is also important there. And now you have the third wave, which is coming through, which is quick commerce, and there you have delivery in 10 minutes. We deliver on e-bikes, as I mentioned. You have a smaller selection available. So as I mentioned, we typically have 1,500 different products in a warehouse, and which are serviced through hyper local dark stores, and service is a priority. And to give you an example, normally in our pitch presentation, we have the real numbers on here, but still, I mean, the scaling is almost the same. So obviously, as Gorillaz, we've rapidly grown. Currently, we grow around 5 to 10% week on week, despite us having reached a huge scale this year already. And but still, we are, which you can see on the right-hand side, we are still a tiny part of like a huge market, basically the largest consumer market, grocery retail. And I think what's super interesting there about Gorillaz and about the whole value proposition, that it doesn't take us a lot to acquire customers. So typically we have very low customer acquisition costs, in particular in uncompetitive markets. If you have a lot of competition in the market, then the acquisition costs can be temporarily higher, but normally it doesn't take us a lot to convince a customer to try the service. And once the consumer is on, we have very sticky cohorts. So typically we have over 50-60% cohort retention, and in dollar terms even over 200%. So once a consumer comes on, they order, and they keep on ordering more and more. So it's very compelling proposition for the consumer, which is basically fueling this unprecedented growth. And here maybe a bit of history about the company. So launched in May 2020, and in November 2020, the second city was launched in Cologne. Then December, that's about the time when I met first Khan and started being engaged with the company. We launched our second country in Netherlands, and we raised the Series A. In February, we launched the UK. And in March, basically, we became the fastest unicorn in European history. We had the 50th warehouse launched, and we raised our Series B. And in the meantime, we've launched a number of other countries. So currently, we're active in 9 countries. As you can see here, also France, US, Italy, Belgium, Spain, Denmark. And we recently closed our Series C round. So now a bit more general. I mean, that was a bit about the Gorillaz history and what we've done here. I wanted to give you an overview in general, how to build pitch decks. And this is taken actually from a Sequoia presentation. how they teach their startups to raise money. And basically also our pitch presentation is usually built on the same fundamentals. And along the lines, I'll tell you maybe some stories how we did it, and how I would structure a pitch presentation. So usually we start with a purpose. So that defines the company and business in a single sentence. Explain what you're doing and why users will want it. That was a bit like, Khan's statement in the beginning where we say, hey, if you can go to the moon, why is it so inconvenient for the consumer to shop groceries? And on the right-hand side here, you always see some examples of original pitch decks. Here, this is from WeWork, for instance. So that's the purpose, what you usually start with. Then you start with a problem. So describe the problem for customers. And how does the customer address the issue today, and why is this insufficient? What do you know about the problem that others don't? And you can see here also, you see the example from YouTube on the right-hand side. I mean, this can be, fairly simple. The problem can be said fairly simple in a couple of bullets. And most presentations are also the best if the problem is so clear and clearly understandable then for the viewer and for the investor. And then you come after a problem, obviously comes a solution. So demonstrate how you solve the customer's new problem or disrupt the customer's existing solution. How does your understanding of solving the problem differ from these predecessors? And what was interesting here at Gorillaz, obviously we solved a problem that maybe, normally you accept the status quo and you accept that it's normal for you to go to the supermarket, for instance, to go on a Saturday to a supermarket and shop all your retail goods for 1 week in advance. So normally you go there, traditionally the consumer goes on a Saturday, has a basket size of 100 euro or something and shops for the whole week. And but if you think about it, it doesn't make sense, because in particular, if you shop for fresh produce, it doesn't make sense on a Saturday to buy blueberries for Tuesday or Wednesday, because on Tuesday or Wednesday they will be moldy and won't taste as good. So for the consumer, actually, it's more convenient and better if they can get fresh produce every day in smaller quantities. And for the consumer, it's also doesn't make so much sense to think about, okay, on Tuesday, I will cook a stew. On Wednesday, I'll cook spaghetti bolognese or something. So I have to think about, okay, what will I shop for the whole week in advance? So that's also the problem, that maybe with a traditional retail structure, nobody really thought about that exists. But once you have a solution like we do now, where you can shop like also smaller baskets and everyday fresh, which become apparent, and that the solution is actually much better than the status quo. And then the next thing is, which is very important, if you pitch your idea, is the market size. So typically, venture capital is a very skewed game, where a few outliers make 100x or something, and typically in early stage investing, and a lot of companies don't work out. So venture capitalists always have the tendency to go after huge total addressable markets, huge market sizes. So normally you try to get into the billions of an addressable market size, which is important. And by the way, also when I was a venture capitalist, I usually looked for 3 things. I looked for a huge macro trend in a market, so the underlying current basically, which defines and how big your business can be. That was first thing. Second thing is a business model within this market segment. So business model usually defines your barriers to entry and defines how profitable you can be in this market segment. And third is a team, how well can the team execute. So market size is a bit about this macro trend and how big is your market now and how quickly is it growing. And at Gorillaz, for instance, we talked a lot about when we try to define our market, we talked a lot about like how many cities in Germany are there, which we could go into. And normally we say, hey, it's cities over 100,000 or over 250,000 people, something like this. We usually assume a penetration rate in these markets, so in these cities, like, I don't know, 20-30% of people in these cities will order with Gorillaz. And then you assume like a monthly basket size, monthly spend. on the platform, yeah, where we usually have also data, of course, how much people spend today, and how much people in general spend on a grocery basket a month, and how much we think we can capture. So that's how we get to our total addressable market. So very important, obviously, again, that this is, that you are going after a big problem, huge addressable market. Yeah? And again, as it says here, the best markets are inevitable. Yeah. Okay. Then competition. Yeah. Usually you won't be the only player in the market. So normally you have to talk about your competitors in the pitch deck. So they're either legacy competitors. I mean, we obviously, compete against traditional retailers, but you also have new startup competitors. So we obviously have also competitors who do the same model as we do and replicate or copy us, or maybe have a different twist to the model, but essentially do the same. And then you have obviously competitors coming from different spaces, adjacent spaces. Like good example for Gorillaz. Oh, sorry, I need some water. Good example for Gorillaz is restaurant delivery players, which have come into the market as well. So interesting here. Normally, also you have a slide in the slide deck then on competition, different competitors, and not surprisingly, your company will always be on the side where all the ticks, all the ticks of the boxes, and competitors, unsurprisingly, won't tick all the boxes in the categories then. Then about the product, So a great product is the only thing that all great companies have in common, So you can talk here about the product lineup, form, functionality, features, architecture, IP property, and roadmap. And you want a product to be so good that all growth hacks, that if all growth hacks were to stop working, you would grow simply by people wanting to use your product. And in our case, again, this is like the product is a value proposition, it's a service. So it's a whole service to deliver 10 minutes groceries to the customer. And there again, I think if you would stop marketing tomorrow, and if there was no competition, the market would still grow, because the product, the value proposition is so strong for the consumer. Then you talk a bit about the business model. So it's ultimately how you make money out of your idea. So the revenue model, your pricing, average account size, and lifetime value. So in our case, a lot of discussions in consumer models, but also in B2B models, always a lot of discussion of customer acquisition cost with customer lifetime value, your sales and distribution model, and your customer's pipeline. And here's some examples on the right-hand side from Airbnb. Again, can be a very simple layout for this. The team, again, also what I mentioned earlier, normally I looked at macro trend in the market. So market, macroeconomics, business model, and the team. And the earlier you are, the more important is the team, because your model might pivot quite a bit. And there's, well, of course, a lot is on the founder and founder-centric. Financials usually have a financial forecast section with the P&L, balance sheet, in particular cash position, and so forth, how it develops over time. You have a cash flow statement, you have your cap table, and then what's the deal? How much can an investor invest at what valuation into the company? So conclusion, do's and don'ts. So very important. So highlight key points and don't distract from content with fancy visualizations in the slides. You've seen the slides on the right-hand side. I was surprised when I looked at the examples. It's usually fairly simple, and the slides usually have only a few points they highlight per slide. Competitive landscape. Talk about the competitors, direct competitors, and that you have a good understanding of your market, who you're up against. And then position your market as basically unavoidable. So the market will go through the roof no matter what, if you're there or not. And that comes back to the point of the macro trend, strong macro trend in the market. And don't get lost so much in the detail. Have a more detailed deck in the backup. You will go through a lot of investor Q&A. Every investor will have different questions, but normally it's important to have like a strong overlying storyline. And on the vision is important, but and don't just focus on what your product is, focus on why you build it. So it's it's one step above the pure product functionality, but really what consumer need are you fulfilling? Yeah. Show how your product solves an obvious consumer need. And then finally, also customer acquisition. That's very important. I mean, just because you put something great out there doesn't mean necessarily it sells immediately in the traction that you want. Yeah. Ideally, of course, you get a lot of consumer pull, but you still have to market. So you have to show how you sell and go to market as well. So yeah, that's the short presentation on pitch presentation, best practice, and how to raise money. So happy to take any questions on our fundraising round or general rounds on general questions on fundraising. Right. If there are no questions, I mean, I don't know if you're Gorillaz customer yet. Please use our voucher code and order today. That's normally how we acquire most of the customers to these investor events. It's always good if you try it out and see if you're convinced yourself. If you don't like it, please send me a message about your experience as well. We'd be very interested to find out more. Okay, then thank you everybody for dialing in tonight. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions about Gorillaz after this. I'm always reachable on LinkedIn, and thank you for taking the time.